We've been asking people these questions for a year now. We figured it's time we ask them ourselves. Kasey, what's your morning routine?
Morning routine is the alarm goes off. I'll be honest, I do hit snooze a couple times. Not every morning, but most of the time. I put my AirPods in. I sit up in bed. I meditate for 15 minutes. Then I get out of bed. Usually, sometimes I still stay there for a minute or two. Get out of bed, drink a big glass of water, take a shower, brush my teeth. I listen to 10 to 15 minutes of positive affirmations while I'm getting ready. As soon as those are over, I start listening to a nonfiction audiobook. I go downstairs, I make coffee, I have my ridiculous amount of supplements, and then I sit down at my desk. Oh, wait, I let the chickens out of the coop. And then I sit down at my desk and I write for 30 minutes. I'm very slowly working on my first book. And so I write for 30 minutes before I really start my day. And then actually right before I really start my day, I try to engage with LinkedIn posts for about 15 minutes. And that's my morning routine.
I forgot you had chickens. Pick one person who's had a significant impact on your career.
A pretty amazing woman by the name of Ashleigh Early. She sent me a random text message 2 years ago. And I was like, hey, random idea, want to start a podcast? And I was like, fuck yeah, Ashleigh motherfucking Early.
Put on a t-shirt, Ashleigh motherfucking Early. The moment I asked it, I knew you were going to say that. I was like, God damn it. How did I not see that coming? All right. What's your pump up song?
This one really changes a lot. I have really been loving the Miley Cyrus, Mark Ronson song, Nothing Breaks Like a Heart. It sounds if Dolly Parton were Miley's age and she made a song with Mark Ronson, and it's a fabulous fucking song and it puts me in a really good mood.
What's one thing you wish you'd learned earlier?
To believe in myself, to trust myself. I spent way too much of my time doing what I thought everybody else wanted and denying my instincts. And there has never been a time in my life where I have regretted following my instincts. And there are lots of times when I regret not doing it. So I wish I'd learned that at a younger age.
What's your favorite sales book?
This is not a sales book, but it is my new favorite book. And I turned you onto this too, I know. And I've been sending it to a million people. But The Happiness Advantage. I think there you go. We get to...
Ashleigh holds it up and Vanna Whites it.
I feel like we are taught in sales to be hyper-focused on metrics and numbers and all of these like measurable things. And that's great. But if we don't get ourselves and our mindset and our kind of perspective on life right first, we're not really going to be able to hit those numbers, or we'll hit those numbers without the results we're really looking for. And or B, we'll be miserable while doing it. And the whole book is really making the case that success doesn't create happiness, creates success. And so if you can find your happiness first, everything else starts to fall into place. It goes back to what I was just saying about following your instinct.
What's one way someone could have been a better ally to you?
I spent a lot of my career as the only woman on the team, and it was really lonely. And I wish that, I don't know, I guess I wish that I had been celebrated and appreciated for the things that made me different. And usually I was not celebrated for the things that made me different. And it was a real challenge.
What's one way you're working to be a better ally to others?
I work really hard to make sure that every time I talk to someone, the conversation ends with them feeling like they could do more, or they believe in themselves more than when it started. And I don't always succeed at that, but that is my goal in all things. And that, I don't know, that's my way of being an ally.
What's your guilty pleasure at the end of the day?
As someone who eats like a ridiculously healthy diet and doesn't really drink anymore and all the rest, I don't have a lot of guilty pleasures lately. Honestly, guilty pleasure is weirdly, it's not a great show, but I love it. Watching old episodes of The Blacklist. Also, I think I'm watching Ted Lasso for the fourth time in a row because it just makes me feel better about myself and the world. So I'm not really guilty about those pleasures, but
They're an indulgence.
they're an indulgence for sure. It is now your turn. What is your morning routine?
Wake up, usually being woken up by a dog, whether which one it is, God only knows. Probably usually it's about 10 to 15 minutes before the actual alarm. So try to go back to sleep and sleep up until the alarm. The alarm goes and grab the phone, check for alerts. I know it's the wrong thing to do. I'm trying to get into this meditation habit that someone keeps telling me I need to do first thing in the morning. Drag my butt downstairs, let the dogs out. While the dogs are out, make coffee, sit down. And this is one of the best things about moving to Europe is I don't have to rush in the mornings. It's amazing. I literally spent my entire career working East Coast or European hours from the West Coast, except for like the last 2 years of my career, in which case I started doing more work with Europe. So I still had to deal with people who were getting up early. And being able to take some time, and even if it's watching a stupid show on TV for a minute or reading a book like The Happiness Advantage, which this crazy person I know kept telling me to read. So I actually started reading it and it's amazing. Doing some knitting, just having like about an hour where I'm just not doing anything has been the most luscious, luxurious thing. Oh, and because I'm in Europe, I also frequently will make myself either like a nice little yogurt parfait or a croissant because I can get them really easily here and they're so good.
Well,
So,
la-di-da.
I am thoroughly enjoying my fancy breakfast. And then honestly, I might have a call or two in the morning, but more often than not lately, my days start at about 3 to 4 in the afternoon. So after that, run errands, go to the grocery store, go for a walk, get out of the house for a little bit, and then come back in and get to work.
That sounds lovely.
It's delightful.
Pick one person who's had a significant impact on your career.
It's funny. I did not prep for this one at all. I knew we were doing this. And I still didn't prep for it until a minute ago. And the answer became very clear. And it's this wild woman named Casey Jones, who said yes to a crazy idea that I had, and along the way managed to teach me so much and saw strength in me that I did not know I had. Honestly, more than anything, I think the biggest thing she's done is she's the first person who I have actually let myself believe she thinks I'm smart. I have this weird, deep-seated thing I'm working through right now where I am terrified of people not thinking I'm smart. I don't know. I'm working on it. And I think Casey might have been the first person who I let myself accept she actually thinks I am. And if one person can think, then maybe other people will too, and I should probably work on this. So that's been a pretty big thing, especially as I started my own business and became an entrepreneur and came to grips with calling myself an entrepreneur and came to grips with calling myself these things that I was very uncomfortable doing. Having that cheerleader has been something that I never took for granted, but especially was thrown into very stark relief when I almost lost it.
Oh.
So that's one person who I can single-handedly give a lot of. I would not be where I am without her.
You're going to make me cry.
You almost made me cry, so I'm paying it back. We're fine. We're adults. We're good.
What's your pump up song?
Under Pressure by Queen.
Ugh.
I cannot sing along that at the top of my lungs every time.
Yeah. You just have those. God.
Oh, yeah. That's the one, like, I literally, and I've been caught doing this more than once. Like, literally, when I had to drive somewhere to work, if I had a big meeting or if I was going into an interview, I'd blast it in my car and be like crying and screaming and then fixing my makeup in the car window before I go inside.
Freaking love it. Okay. What's one thing you wish you'd learned earlier in your career?
That asking for help outside the company is a smart thing to do. I never had a problem really asking for help. I've never really had a problem admitting I don't know something or I'm not confident. That's easy. I thought you had to keep it in the family. So I didn't really start networking and connecting with people outside of my immediate company until I was 5-6 years into my career. Yeah. And instantly. It was like that moment in The Wizard of Oz where it went from black and white to Technicolor. I love that. Just that it just, the world just opened up in ways that I never imagined. And I can't describe what a big jump that was. And honestly, I'm going to give a shout out here. The person who did that was my boss at the time, was a guy named Brent Ramey, who sent me to a training with this guy named John Barrows. And through that training, I got to a bunch of other people, and I started going to events with the Topo was putting on, and meeting people like Craig Rosenberg and a million other people. And just all of a sudden I was in the middle of Silicon Valley, and I'd been there for 5 years, and I had no idea there was this whole other world. Yeah. And my game got so good so fast just by being around these incredible people that, that's been huge.
I love that. So powerful. What's your favorite sales book?
Yeah. Confession here. I suck at reading sales books. I really suck at them. This question is on here because I wanted to get better at it. And I thought by guest giving recommendations, it would light a fire under my butt to get me to read them. Nope, it hasn't. So I'm going to go with the only sales book that I've actually, one of two sales books I've actually read cover to cover. Sales Development Playbook by Trish Bertuzzi. Yeah. That's the only one I've been able to actually read cover to cover. And it's if you haven't read it and you are at all in SDR leadership or interested in SDR leadership and you haven't read it, you're an idiot.
It's like a seminal classic. It's one of those things where it's like one of the, I don't know, it should be part of like sales 101. It
really should. And what she does,
and that's not to say that it's dumbed down by any means, but it is like the foundational thing, and you can't, like, it's just needed. It's honestly required reading.
Like nerdy analogy here. If you study classical singing at all, everyone does this. You get a book called 24 Classic Italian Songs and Arias. Everyone does it. There's a different one for each voice type. There's a soprano version, there's a high soprano version, there's an alto version, there's a tenor, there's a baritone, there's a bass. Every voice group goes through that, and you go through that book. That's the first thing you do. Everyone does it. It's that. And then you go pick whatever other stuff you want to learn how to do. But you start with 24 Italian Songs and Arias. Sales Development Playbook, if you are at all interested in having a career in sales development specifically, is that. If you're not starting with that, you are starting with one hand tied behind your back, period.
Yeah. What's one way someone could have been a better ally to you?
Ask if I was okay.
Yeah.
I am really good, and especially early in my career, I was very good at putting on a brave face. And it got to the point where I was good enough at putting on a brave face that people bought it until I couldn't anymore, and I broke.
Yeah.
And it made things so much worse. Like, I'm a massive Royals watcher, always have been, always will be. I love it. It's fascinating. It's flawed. I still love it. When that reporter asked Meghan Markle if she was okay, that look was triggering to me that she made, because I know that looks so well, because that's all it needed. I just needed someone to add. There were several points where someone just asked me that. I would have had, I would have made that exact face. I would have been, yeah. And like fighting back tears. And you would have known I wasn't, and I could have maybe been pushed to get help a little bit earlier and not had the massive blow ups that I had. But even then, just asking, are you okay? The people you have to watch out for are the ones who look like everything's perfect, and the ones where everything is always broken.
And that's, in the last year, we've talked about this multiple times. Every single person that I've talked to who's had someone on their team die by suicide, they said that no one had any clue that anything was wrong. And so it's one of those things. And I'm glad you said this, because I tend to be I think I've gotten better, but we're not a communicative family that I grew up in. And so I just assume if someone doesn't say something, then you like assume they're okay. And no. And so I'm really glad that you just shared that, because I think that's a really powerful message that we all need like a constant reminder for. What's one way you're working to be a better ally for others?
One, asking people, and really trying to like be very strategic about asking and reaching out to people. I've actually got to the point where even if somebody has really good news or something like that, or someone's like, oh my God, they're killing it, Like the moment I hear that they're killing it, I'm like, hey, how you doing? I started making that a thing. But I think the bigger thing I'm doing is I'm trying to, I've come to realize, especially the past year, how poorly sales managers are educated on mental health, and specifically how poorly they're educated on how to spot red flags and warning signs in their team.
Yeah.
We all, worry about burnout and stuff like that, but I'm talking stuff like people who, like the very basics of mental health. If somebody seems really upset and really stressed, and then all of a sudden seems super calm, that's a red flag for suicide watch. Watching for basic signs of ADD, ADHD. A lot of that stuff can manifest in your early 20s, which means early SDR managers, you have to watch for these things. Well, you don't have to, but you will be better. Your team will get better if you know how to watch and manage these things. I have had 8 people that I can think of off the top of my head who have confided in me while I was directly managing them that they were bipolar, because I guessed, not because I'm prying, but because I knew the signs and I recognized in at least one case, someone was off their medication. That's a really proud moment for me, because and this person has since told me they were spinning and I caught it. One conversation. Hey, are you okay? Just these little things. This is not HR compliance. This is human to human connection and getting good performance out of your team. This is being selfish. I wanted that person to make sure they perform so I could hit my goddamn number and get my paycheck at the end of the month. And the way I do that is by making sure they're taking care of themselves. And just asking a simple question, are you okay? I'm seeing these things, making it very matter of fact. So what I'm doing to be a better ally for others is make sure that we are making discussions on mental health common in the workplace, and that our leaders are armed with this very basic information. Because the worst case situation is someone leaves because of their mental health. That is a wholly unnecessary termination. It's a wholly unnecessary tumult in the company, for you, for the individual. It's just bad in every way, not to mention the actual legit legal liability and play. This stuff is all manageable if we could just have some open conversations about it.
Yep.
So that's one thing I'm currently doing.
If you're wrong and everything's fine, then they know you cared.
Well, and I'll talk, anyone who's interested in how to have these conversations, I will not claim to have all the answers, but I'll share my strategies offline. This is not me going to someone saying, hi, I think you're bipolar. No, this is, I'm noticing these things, and through the conversation, they decide to confide. No one ever has to. And this isn't something I'm doing lightly. I'm doing very cautiously. And I'm not even going to mention where any of these things happen, because I know HR would kick my ass. And I'll tell you this, in every single one of those conversations, I told the person, do not tell anyone else at this company.
Yeah.
Because it's a liability for everyone on every side. And as much as I love the companies that I worked for, mental health in this country is such a way there are not protections. And you have to, it is an incredible leap of faith.
Yeah.
If you're battling something, to trust your employer with that information. And that shouldn't be the case, but practical advice, reality versus how it should be. And things are changing, and that's good, but we've got a ways to go.
What is your guilty pleasure after a bad day?
I'm going to go so shtick here. It's going to make anyone laugh if you know me. A custom cocktail, probably gin based. Lately, I've been really enjoying aviations, or really I do a variation on like a lemon drop, but it's with gin with some compressed lemon but spices. So it's really fun. It's like warming, but like that in a bathtub while watching stupid vet shows.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah. And I should be clear, I live in Europe now. Most houses do not come with bathtubs. I bought an inflatable one that fits in my shower. It's amazing. It's called a tubble. It's actually, no joke, the water actually stays warmer longer than any tub I've ever owned, because it's air. So it's like a great insulator. So you can stay in there for like an hour and a half and it's still warm. It's amazing. Yeah. So definitely bathtub. Oh, and there's definitely scents involved. Ideally some like candle in the corner, but I'm also a huge fan of, I never know how to pronounce it. It's Kneip, K-N-E-I-P-P, but it's this European brand. I was raised on their like essential oils, basically. They're like bath oil stuff, but it's so good. And I'm over here now, so I can get it everywhere. It's fantastic.
Divine.
It is. I don't do it often enough.